Hey everybody, welcome back to On Stage, Off Stage. I'm your host, George Sapio, and this is episode number 189, April of 2025. This month's guests are Diane Quinn and Bill Fuller, co-founders and driving force behind Unseen Theater, an audio podcast showcasing unproduced original plays featuring, something very much after my own heart, strong female protagonists, all performed by SAG-AFTRA actors. Diane is artistic director, co-producer, and also has been an actor and playwright for Unseen Theater, and is additionally the podcast's marketing director. Bill, her co-producer, audio engineers every sonic second, composes and arranges the podcast's original music, and handles the web design, graphics, and is also a playwright. I know Diane from NewYorkPages.org, and we've worked together on a couple of occasions.
Yes, we have.
So, Bill, I haven't met before. Welcome, Bill. It's nice to meet you. And you guys run a website podcast, I guess. Unseen Theater, which is audio theater, which is a very small way to describe what it is you do. Give me a little bit of history with this. How did it start? How many years you've been going? What's going on?
Well, I'll start. In 2016, we got together and decided we wanted to do something. We wanted to tell stories. We wanted to share our love of theater because for us, when we heard a good play or saw a good play, we'd have a conversation afterwards. And sometimes it just made us think differently. And theater can do that. I've been in theater for a long time in various aspects, and theater can change people's minds. It can
Oh,
let them
yeah, I
think
hope
about
so.
something.
Yes,
No, but it really, sometimes a good story can move you. And that
yes.
was something we both realized. Personally, I was injured one time as a dancer, and I spent all that time recovering reading plays, just going and having someone bring them to me and reading play after play after play. And it was such a comfort, but it was also an exploration of things beyond my little circle of where I was. It
Yeah.
allows you to expand. I mean, one of the catchphrases we have on our website is nourish your imagination. That's one of the things that sort of both of us are creatives, so that's one of the things we really enjoy is helping people nurture their imagination.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
one of the.
initial,
Go
sorry,
ahead, go ahead. Yeah,
the
no.
the initial idea really came with me brainstorming one night. I knew Diane had belonged to a lot of different play reading groups,
In
and
person at the time.
in
Yeah,
person at the time, and I thought, what could we do? I mean, it's so expensive to try and put on some sort of show in a theater. It's so
mm,
expensive to try and make a movie or some sort of TV series. It's like we can't do that. We don't have the funds to try and do something like that. What could we do that, we already have the skills to do that wouldn't cost a bunch of money? And I'm like, well, I have a room full of microphones. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
theater is expensive. It
Yes.
really is. Even storefront black box stuff is where you're going to get the money for this. And even though it's the best, my opinion, it's the best form of theater because we're all together, we're having fun. It's body against body. It's talking to each other in real time, real proximity. Between COVID and price, it's not always possible.
And also, not everyone can get to the theater. And that was another
Right.
thought process in our formulation of what we decided to do with all these brainstorming sessions we had back then in 2016. We were thinking, well, for instance, I have a family member that was losing his sight and would always go to the theater, but stopped going because he couldn't always see everything.
Yeah.
And other people that I know have trouble hearing. And, there's different things, or they can't afford to go to theater. And so all these things were concerns for us. And we thought this might allow us to do what we want to do, get really great storytelling out there, but do it in a way that we are capable of doing it. Because we do have a recording studio, because we
Yeah.
do have, lots of different skills combined.
So what kind of background did you bring to this? I mean, or did you just start it up from scratch going, hey, what do we need? A microphone?
No, I'm a marketing person, but I'm also a research person. So we spent 2 years, I think, going over ideas and research. I mean, not every day. We both had full-time jobs, but all the hours having these meetings and talking about it
Hmm.
and deciding what to do and doing research of what the market was. And back in 2016, most only of the podcasts out there that were theater podcasts were large professional theaters that recorded their show live and then put it on the internet. Another concern was because of the unions. I've been a longtime union member, and I wanted to put out something with union members, and so I had to work with the union. And that was an early concern too, because when I approached the union and said, this is what we want to do, they didn't have a contract. They said, it's kind of do what you want, just treat the actors well, because it was still developing.
Yeah, it was new ground for a lot of people.
Yeah, and so we worked with them to tell them what we thought was right, and negotiated and had many meetings with them, and then came up with the contract. And now the contract's changed again, but early on we helped them create the contract that we used.
Do you work with only union people?
Yes.
Okay. Is that part of the contract? Because I am non-union. Is it feasible to work with some union members and non-union members in a shop, or whatever you want to call it?
Right now, because the contract is with SAG-AFTRA, we have to work with SAG-AFTRA actors. You know, we try to respect all the unions, but we don't have a contract, for instance, with Dramatists Guild. Most of our playwrights are with Dramatists Guild anyway. It's not part of our brand. And we also, with the Directors Union, we don't yet have a contract with Directors Union. So we work with directors who might not. Again, many of our directors have been part of the union, but that's not a requirement for us either.
Yeah, I've noticed from listening to several of your podcasts, and the work is absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Well done, well earned. You kidding me? Bill, you seem to have a history in sound design.
Yeah, I mean, I studied music production and engineering at Berklee College of Music. So
Okay.
I've been doing sound engineering for 30 some years now. And I've always been a musician too. Everybody that goes to Berklee is a musician, no matter what your major is. So, you know, I've been a singer since I was a little kid, you know, learned to play guitar, went to Berklee, learned technology and the production side of things. You know, I do a ton of work for field production for videos. So we do corporate videos, we work for the news, TV shows, whatever. There's a cameraman that I work with primarily, and I do location sound. I also compose music to go with videos and whatnot. And so the initial idea for our podcast I wasn't even necessarily thinking about music or anything. That was something that came later on. It was like, oh wow, this is an opportunity for me to compose some music to go along with some of these podcasts as well. So it turned into a great creative outlet for me too.
And I just want to let non-theater people and some theater people know out there, no matter how good or bad it sounds, sound design is a ton of work.
Certainly is.
Oh, you should see these guys nodding right now.
Yeah.
You can literally spend days in the studio.
And we do.
Yes, trying to get that right. And the music that goes with your productions, is that yours, Bill?
Yeah. It's all my original music, except for one had smaller pieces, and so those were just my arrangements. But yeah, all the other music is my music too. Composed, and I recorded and played all the instruments and everything. It's all me.
Excellent. Yeah, because it does sound beautiful. And everybody out there, drop this podcast now and go to unseentheater.nyc and start listening to their wonderful stuff. Then come back and listen to the rest of this. Okay. Somebody's going to do it. You know somebody out there is going to do it.
We hope so.
Walk us through. You have a slot for another show coming up at some point in the future. How do you pick your scripts? How do you find your actors? And what goes into actually making this wonderful thing happen?
Well, you want to hear how the sausage is made, okay.
I wouldn't put it quite that way,
No,
but yeah, sure.
As you said, there's a lot of work. And when we started, you know, we really did not anticipate. I knew because, again, I've been in theater for a long time, but also I've been able to watch theater. I worked in Broadway houses, helping people who were hearing impaired get headsets and things like that as a young actor, and I was able to watch shows many, 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 many times, but I could also see the lighting board. I also got to see the sound person. I also got to witness what the stage manager does, because we get there early and they'd be in rehearsal. So, I mean, I realized theater takes time, but also we wanted to you asked about the process that we
Yeah.
use. I
Yeah.
think that we start with people we know, like every experience out there. You start with what you know.
Yeah.
And because I've been in play reading groups, playwright development groups in New York City, I know a lot of playwrights. I know a lot of directors. I know a lot of fantastic actors. And because of the unions, I know lots of actors as well. So we started with what we know. We start looking for plays. We don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll let Bill take it about the playwright submission process.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been able to have an open submission process. We would love to do that if we could figure out a system that wouldn't overwhelm us, because it's just the two of us making this thing go.
Yeah.
And you know, if somebody were to put out on, you know, a social media post, hey, you have a new play you've written, send it over here, we would get bombarded with too many.
No,
We
no,
can't
they
read
never
them.
find your corpses.
Actually, we were looking for a director, and I asked a friend for a referral, and she reached out to someone and said, "Oh, sure, this person." So that person sent an email to all their group in their theater company. In 2 minutes, I had 50 emails
Yeah.
about Unseen Theater asking to be part of it. We hadn't even launched yet, but none of them were directors. They were mostly actors. So even though she had asked for directors, everybody just saw it and jumped in, and my email box was overwhelmed.
Yeah. So for now, we're going with word of mouth. We respect people that we think are professionals.
Sure,
We expect
yeah.
their professional advice. Their opinion. Hey, do you know somebody? Great. Have them send if they have something that's appropriate. That's the other thing. Is like you have to follow what our guidelines are. Tell what the guidelines
Yeah,
are.
Well,
let's talk
we're,
about
we're
this. Yeah.
sure we're female-driven narratives, and that is very personal to me. But also, Bill shares that many times in these play reading groups that I belong to, and I belong to several, and they're all wonderful groups. I belonged to Times Square Playwrights. I belong to NYC Playwrights, Pages, as you mentioned,
Yep.
and the Playground Experiment. During that time that I was in all these different groups, many times, you know, it's just an open thing. Actors walk in, a cold reading, and you go. And many times I was asked to play a male part, which is lots of fun because you have lots of lines. But then when I was asked to play a female part, very few lines because most of the playwrights in those groups were male.
We're
And they
men,
wrote stories
yes.
they knew, and they wrote about men.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the determinations we made early on, is that we wanted our podcast to have female-driven stories just to sort of balance the playing field.
Yeah, no, it's an absolutely noble purpose, and I'm behind you 3,000%. I personally love strong female protagonists. They're more interesting to me than just about anything else. Not that I'm saying men are boring, but I've been one for most of my life. So, you know, actually all of my life.
Well, I also know a lot of strong, independent-minded women. And
Yeah.
so for me, you know, a lot of the stories that men write, although they're lovely and I've enjoyed them, sometimes, again, the women are sort of an ancillary part of the
Right.
story and not the featured part.
Supporting roles, not
Yeah.
not protagonists. Yes.
Another part of our criteria goes along with the name that we came up with for our company, Unseen Theater.
Yeah.
We thought, well, we could have double meaning to that. It's audio only, so you don't see it. You only see it in your mind. But also, we only do plays that have never been produced before. So brand new plays you've never seen anywhere. And I mean, if
Or
it's
heard anywhere.
Yeah, or heard
Yeah.
anywhere. Right. So it's unseen in that respect also. So that's another one of our criteria.
And as far
Nice.
as length or genre, we're very open. We have a team of readers, which we call Fresh Eyes Readers, and you can look at our website to see how many people are in that group, and it's growing. And if anyone wants to be a Fresh Eyes reader, they can write to us. And basically, we send them plays that we get in from these various people we reach out to, and they read
Yeah.
them first and make sure they meet the criteria and help us out. And then once they think something's good, they pass it on to us, and we evaluate it.
Nice. Let's talk about your current show, because right now we're in the middle of March, and your show is Petey.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, which I've listened to and I absolutely love. Let's talk about this. What's the play? Who's the playwright? And yeah, give us more of this.
Okay, well, Petey is a play that actually that playwright, Ade Canovas, reached out to us through a friend that I had reached out to and sent us a different play. But we had already done something in a similar theme to the play she sent us, but I loved her writing. And that was years before we started working with her. I kept her in mind and put her in my database and said, this is someone to pay attention to. And then when we were looking for another play, we reached out to her and said, do you have anything else? And she sent us this one, and we just both really liked it. I think it's so relatable because it's about healthcare, and who hasn't been frustrated? And I'm not disparaging, just saying that our healthcare system in America, anyway,
could use a little work.
Yes, thank you. Nicely said. But yeah, so it appealed to us, and we started working on it with her. That's one of the things we also do. We work with the playwright.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them, well, you can talk about this too, but a lot of them don't send us plays that are audio ready.
That's what I was going to ask you next. I'm so glad you got into this because most plays are built for live performance, but when you don't have visual and all you have is audio, how do you work with the playwright? Go, Bill.
Yeah, well, we talked it through, and what we've decided works for us is, instead of like if you go to like a staged reading or something, or a cold read or whatever, you have somebody there reading the stage directions. We wanted something a little more interesting than that. So in all of our plays, we work with the playwright and ask them to write a new character called the narrator. And so the narrator basically sets up all of the scenes. So, and tells anything that's visually really important to the story, that the audience needs to know is happening, that they can't tell from the dialogue. The narrator comes in and tells the audience what's happening, otherwise they wouldn't know. So they set up, each scene, and occasionally they interject explaining something that needs to be known to the audience. But we try to minimize it as much as possible, so not to interrupt the flow of the storytelling. But that's what we do.
That's got to be tricky, whether or not you're drawing focus away from the narrative, and you got to keep those things short. And yeah, attention span is is such a tricky little animal.
And that's why we offer the play both full play that you can listen to all at once, or we also offer it in a phrase we coined, earfuls. And we call them commuter-friendly earfuls because a lot of times people listen while they're traveling or in a car or whatever. So, so then we break it up into like 15-minute increments, roughly.
That is such a great idea because it's so hard to remember where you came back to, or then you spend 20 minutes trying to find where you left off. And the way you guys package this, I thought was absolutely excellent for people who have only this amount of time to spend listening to something that they want to listen to in their entirety, but don't have that much time.
What we have found in doing sort of the post, listen marketing research, we have found that even though people do love the earfuls, most people do end up staying with the whole play. They'll listen to earful after earful or they'll just transition to the whole play. So
that's understandable because I started listening to some of this, and I had a dozen other things I needed to do, but I just kept going. Okay, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes.
Hopefully it draws you in, right?
It did. Well, I mean, congratulations on the play selection, which I think is outstanding. It's such a good play. And let's hear the name of the playwright one more time.
Haiti Canovas.
Haiti Canovas.
Or Ade.
Ade, if you speak Spanish.
If you speak Spanish.
Ade Canovas. Well done, Ade. Yes. Let's talk a little bit about your background, and I want to start with Diane.
Sure.
As you mentioned earlier, you're dance aficionado. You were a dancer or still are a dancer for. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Sure.
Joffrey Ballet was in there somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't end up performing with the Joffrey. I studied with them. I was injured during the time, but I did study with them. I studied with other places, and yeah, I have a dance background, and not just ballet, but pretty much every type of dance. And I also taught ballroom for a while, learned that at a young age because my dad taught ballroom.
Sure. So dance is in the family.
Well, he also was a teacher. I mean, that was his primary profession. Yeah, my family loves theater, and dance was something that I grew up as a kid doing. So it's always been a very special part of my life. Discipline.
Oh gosh, yes, it does.
Well, there's a friend of Diane's who said something really funny the other day. She's like, You dancers, you think you can do anything if you just practice hard enough.
I totally agree. You can.
She just assumes an awful lot, doesn't she?
Oh, but Diane was sort of shaking her head when she said that to her. Well, the ballet background, it is extremely disciplined, and yeah, you just keep going and going, and eventually you can do those moves.
Yeah, sometimes it takes an awful lot longer. I mean, it's people who don't practice this stuff, or people who are not in the field, whatever field it happens to be, wonder why you're doing the same thing over and over and over. And you know this as a musician, it's just that one passage that no matter how hard you're trying to make it happen, just doesn't work for like weeks on end sometimes. Then all of a sudden, some part of your body just decides, fine, and it clicks.
But it's also so enjoyable. I mean, it's the one space in my life, even as a young person, where I felt like I was completely free and I could do anything. And I knew the limitations if I hadn't, practiced, but it really is freeing and wonderful. So I'm really glad I had that background. It led me to musical theater, and that led me to other theater and so forth. So yeah, it was a stepping stone. And it's still very important to me, but I just don't study regularly anymore.
How early did you get into musical theater?
Loving musical theater? Probably when I was a kid, because my parents belonged and went to see musicals. So they would often play albums, cast albums. I got to learn a lot of those old musicals because of that. So it's always been a part of my life.
Yeah, you and I have something in common like that. My grandmother used to give me all these cast musicals. I was the only first grader who knew all the words to South Pacific and Fiddler on the Roof. And yeah.
I've done both of those shows.
Oh! Bill, you've been in music for, as we're talking, it's like dozens of years, I guess.
Music? Yeah, well, music's been in my life since I was a little kid singing. This is a little funny story. My sister, who's a little older than me, excuse me, when I was a little kid, everybody knew I was a good singer. And so what she and her friend used to do for fun is they would put headphones on me and put on a Billy Joel record and turn the speakers off in the room and just listen to me sing along with Billy Joel. And that was like entertainment for them.
And you were like, what, 5?
Yeah, it was just a little fart,
Oh, that's great. That's great. What's your favorite Billy Joel to sing?
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Yeah,
that's a tough one. I mean, I've always loved She's Always a Woman. That's one of my favorites. But sure. I mean, it's hard to pick.
Well, you've got a couple of albums. Let's talk about those first.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, The Truth That Lies, Let It Breathe.
Yep, 2 albums. Singer-songwriter, me with the, me playing along with a lot of my favorite friend musicians, backing me up, drummers, bass players, guitarists, piano players, accordion, trumpet. There's a lot, and I vary a lot of different styles too. Like another one of my favorite artists is Sting. Sure, I love Ten Sumner's Tales, and that album explores a lot of different genres. He does more a pop thing, maybe more a rock thing, then maybe more a jazz thing, and I love doing that too. So if you listen to my albums, it's the same sort of thing. Like, one song might be more poppy, another might be more heavy rock, another might be more really jazzy. Yeah. I love not sticking to just one genre.
It's much more fun that way. I think it keeps so many things interesting.
Yeah, and this podcast has broadened my horizons even way wider than I ever would have thought. Even like
traditional Greek,
like the current show we have up, Petey.
Yeah,
it's a Cuban family. I've never written any Cuban music until now. This came along. Okay, I'm gonna explore and try to learn all these crazy conga rhythms that they do in Cuba. And before, and I never would have had the motivation or a reason to do it until this play came along. And it was fascinating. That stuff is complex. I mean, you could spend many years just learning conga rhythms on how Cuban players play congas.
So when you're talking about learning conga rhythms, did you do the drums?
Yeah.
Yourself?
Yeah. I learned what they were and programmed them as good as I could. And sometimes I would find loops of somebody else actually doing that rhythm because they could do it so much better than me. So I would combine the rhythm, a loop of somebody playing one of these conga patterns, and then add maybe some other percussive elements to it that I programmed along with it. So it's kind of like a hybrid instead of being just purely traditional, like just a conga loop that somebody
Sure.
would do. It's combined with my influence. So
Nice. That must have been fun.
it is fun. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this next piece that we haven't released yet was I decided to do more pure classical sounding stuff, which I'd never done. So all of a sudden I'm doing these orchestrations with like strings and horns and
Wow.
timpanis and all sorts of like stuff that's like not something I would normally do if I was just doing something that I wanted to, like for another album or something.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
Try to promote one piece at a time, and even though we put this next piece out, we just didn't really work on promotion for it yet, so we'll do that later in the year. But yeah, I mean, we're always working on the next piece and always putting it forward. And
Sure. How many productions a year do you do?
Well, it depends on the year. There was one year we didn't do any because it was after COVID, and it
Right.
was, yeah. But we had, before we released any plays, before we launched Unseen Theater, we had already recorded 3 plays. So we were ready to go. And we did that as a marketing choice, not that we knew COVID was coming, but just because we thought we should be ready because we knew how marketing, I mean, I'm a marketing consultant,
Right,
so I know
right.
how it goes. And I know you have to give something, a campaign, some time to take root. So
Sure.
that's why we did that.
Another
So-
thing we should say that we didn't say earlier, actually,
Yeah.
it has to do with the way that we're capturing these performances.
Yeah.
We put, well, especially before COVID, we put all the actors in one room. I set up a row of microphones, and they're there interacting with each other the same way they would as if they're on stage. And we run the show from beginning to end the same way you would as if it was a live performance. So it adds a different level of energy and interaction of the actors interacting with each other, to give it a live feel, to give it a better, emotional feel, rather than doing it like a film, like out of order. And we don't rehearse nearly as long as like a live show would. We don't demand that much time out of our actors. And another thing that we do for the actors' sake is I put up teleprompters behind everybody, so they don't have to memorize the script. Just come prepared. Don't spend a bunch of time memorizing your lines. Show up, be ready to do your character, and you're going to see the person you're interacting with. But if you don't know the line, you can just glance a little to the left, and there's the words right there for you. So we try to make it easy on the actors, but capture that live aspect, and it's worked well so far. Yeah.
Nice. I'm still getting over the fact that you have teleprompters?
Yes, we have a full-service studio, a state-of-the-art full-service studio that we work out of.
With
because-
teleprompters.
Yes,
That's
we
so
run
cool.
the teleprompters.
Wow.
It's a little crazy doing sound and running the teleprompter at the same time, which I do, I have to say.
Right, but yeah, we, again, before COVID, we had everyone in the room. Now we've made some adjustments on the later plays. Sometimes we have 2 or 3 people in the room and other people on Zoom. We've adapted, but the idea when we were thinking about this is to represent sort of the old radio play style. Even though we weren't familiar with it when we researched, that was kind of the feel we wanted, except we chose not to do the Foley aspect because that's an art in itself.
It is, yeah. Yeah, but
So-
it can be so much fun.
Oh, it could be, but
Yeah.
that's another whole job for another person.
Oh,
that we have to
absolutely,
bring
yeah.
into the mix.
Yeah. hmm I have one last question, then I'll let you guys go. And this is for Bill. And I was looking through your bio and I was impressed, and I was very impressed. And then I was just like, I had to totally stop. You worked with David Bowie.
I knew that was coming.
I used to work at this, excuse me. I used to work at a very famous recording studio here in New York City called Right Track Recording. And right when I graduated Berklee College of Music, I managed to land a job working there right away.
Yeah.
And my first day on the job, my job was to make cappuccino for David Bowie all day long. And so he was in between his, some people are down in the studio working on his album. He's up in the lounge. And that particular day, he was doing television and radio interviews all day in the lounge. And I would bring him a fresh cappuccino in between each interview that he would do. And he must have had like 5 or 6 of them. He was just driving through them. But I'll tell you what, he was the most down-to-earth, nice guy you could ever meet. Super nice guy. He's
I do want to mention something that I heard on you mentioned, and I think you also touched on your podcast, and also something you mentioned in, I think, your book, is the formatting that playwrights send things to us.
Oh, good gosh, yes. Yeah.
That's really important to us. We have limited time. We do work with a couple of people who send us stuff, and as I said, the readers read it and then get it to us. And if you want to increase your chances, formatting is important. Because if someone doesn't take the time to format, and we have another play that's given to us that immediately is going to take precedence.
Oh, absolutely. It's folks out there who are writing things and submitting, please take her words to heart and take mine to heart as well. If it's not formatted the way we want to read it, we're looking for a chance to get rid of some of these things so we can make the other ones stand out a little bit better. It's important. Read the instructions, format correctly, and who knows, you might get fame and stardom with either one of our podcasts.
We even have a link on our website in the FAQs if someone has questions about formatting.
Yeah, it's important.
Also, we just want to add, we're very excited. The next play that we haven't...
Oh, yeah. Let's hear about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's by Arthur Lundquist, someone that you know as well.
I know Arthur, yes.
Yeah, wonderful playwright. And it actually is something that he workshopped a little bit in Pages.
Good, yeah.
Run by Don Loftus and a wonderful group there that I'm a part of as well. And he created this play that, again, I read for him in Pages, and I really liked it. And so we worked with him and approached him about it. And then when the time was right, we started working on it. So we recorded that last year and released that in January. We haven't promoted it yet, but we will later this year. But it got actually, we were asked to attend a festival in Canterbury, and we're going in probably 2 weeks to represent his play because we were nominated for that festival. It is the UK Radio Drama Festival.
International Radio
Drama Festival.
Wow.
Radio Drama Festival.
That's amazing. Good for everyone involved, you two and Arthur too. I can't wait to hear this because I do like Arthur's work a lot. That's fantastic. Canterbury, huh?
They have if anybody's listening, and it's happening right now, I think for pretty much the whole month of April, they will have what they call the audience award, where people can listen. They can tune into the festival website. They can listen and they can vote on who they like, and they award prizes to what the audience thinks. So if anybody's listening, and that's right now, it's April 2025, go on the International Radio Drama Festival website and look up A Romance in the Air by Unseen Theater and vote for us.
Okay. Diane and Bill, this has been so much fun. You guys are wonderful to speak with. You put out such a good podcast. It's really been a pleasure to have you guys on the show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's been great.
Hey kids, thanks for listening to On Stage, Off Stage. On Stage, Off Stage is produced monthly, and all of our shows can be found at onstageoffstage.org and also on iTunes and Spotify. If you like what we do, please recommend us to your friends. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Blue Sky and Instagram. And if you are a theater artist with an upcoming project of interest or work in a part of theater we haven't yet covered, or know of someone in the theater world who'd make some good chat, please send us a note at onstageoffstagepodcast@gmail.com. If you love what we do and want to support us, please visit our website where you'll find links to buy us a cup of coffee, or visit our Etsy store where we have reasonably priced and eminently useful items, all featuring the Onstage Offstage logo, certain to make you the envy of all your friends. Our theme music is Don't Worry, Be Frappy by the composer Max Dickinson. Max's work can be found on SoundCloud. And please don't forget to support your local theaters. Buying a ticket to a local performance supports your art scene, keeps the theaters open, and helps bring in more diverse entertainment. Be a friend to your local theaters. This is George Sapio saying thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next month.